When you begin a Minecraft world, it's likely you'll run to a tree, punch it, collect the logs, turn them into planks, then craft the table that lies at the heart of this endless game. But today I want to explore a lesser-known experience. What happens when we're holding the log, and what happens when we put it back? A few months ago, I dreamt of a landscape. A glistening lake hugged by mountains with patches of coniferous forests and flowery meadows. Now, I'm a professional Minecraft builder, so when I thought of rendering this dream, I imagined it in Minecraft. And I figured it wouldn't be a difficult task. I grew up in a mountainous region. My childhood playground was the forest, and nature was always a core theme of my builds. All in all, the project seemed familiar and easy. Or so I thought. The moment I began to build, my brain started to lag. Everything about the landscape overwhelmed me. I'd build for an hour, and then I'd just stare. I found it wonderful one moment, and hated it the next. I tried working on it again, and again, and again, but at a certain point, I just stopped. So what gives, you're probably thinking? Sniff, maybe nature just isn't your strong suit. After all, with just as much practice, you were able to master other types of builds. And I really thought the same. I was ready to call this a weakness, something that I wasn't personally fit to master, but also something about it irked me. Why this of all things? I love nature. I live and breathe it. I own dozens of houseplants. I paint still lifes of flowers. Everything I do goes back to nature. If anything, it should be my specialty. Some people already think it is. Out of curiosity, I created a poll on my YouTube community tab to see if I was alone in this regard. And as it turns out, I was not. 8,000 people responded, and the vast majority agreed that nature was more difficult to build than the human construction of a house. What surprised me, though, was the overlap in reason between both sides. Some people cited the randomness of nature as a comfort, while others described it as a barrier. A few brought up Minecraft's own catalog of nature iconography as helpful, while others expressed the necessity and desire they felt to veer away from it. The polls were in, but the cause was definitively not. As vindicated as I was, this response just confused me. Desperate for further explanation, I turned to the one place a Minecraft YouTuber dare not go: the library. There, unsurprisingly, in the wealth of human knowledge, I found my answer. So let's discuss the question: why is nature so hard to build in Minecraft? But first, a word from today's sponsor, Petite Planet. Petite Planet is an upcoming, cozy, galactic-themed life sim that I'm really excited for. You basically get your own little planet to develop and terraform and build upon. This is what I'm personally hyped for, as the terraforming and building features look really easy and intuitive to use without restricting creativity. Of course, this planet isn't for you alone. There's a whole cast of NPCs and neighbors to interact with and build relationships with. I can say already, just looking at the character designs, I would do anything for Medellin. But if NPCs aren't enough, this game does have social and multiplayer features. You can interact and chat with other players, take photos together, and show off your stuff. Last but not least, Petite Planet features stories and quests that take you beyond your home planet for exploration and further adventure into the universe of the game. Oh, and did I mention it's completely free? Currently, it's available on mobile and PC in beta. You can try Petite Planet for yourself by using the link in my description, and thank you so much to Petite Planet for sponsoring this video. Before we get into the weeds, and trust me, there are weeds, it's best to start at the surface. To talk about building nature in Minecraft, we have to acknowledge how it exists naturally in the game. A Minecraft environment is like a stage set. The world exists as a resource for you, the player, to move and manipulate as you please. In line with this game design philosophy, the world never changes itself. Trees don't regrow unless you plant them, water never erodes the rocks, and snow only melts at your whim. No natural processes exist beyond you, and therefore Minecraft's nature is a facade with no ecosystem behind it. If a player wants more than what is given, they are required to build it themselves. Knowing this, when we discuss building nature in Minecraft, we're actually referring to natural aesthetics. Humans are architects of houses, not the environment. Therefore, our construction of trees and things alike are aesthetic ideals of their real counterparts. This is why you'll never see a build tutorial for the tree. It's always how to build a tree, with no block-by-block constructions, but rather a breakdown of nature's design. It's also the reason why the question I posed on my community tab was kind of unfair. Nature is vast and encompasses many things that humanity is still attempting to define. And as one of my subscribers so eloquently put it,
box house is still house.
because a house is defined as a human dwelling, its aesthetic value plays no role in its validity. You may prefer the castle, but I can't say this isn't a house. It's hard to say the same for nature. Our ability to aesthetically capture it is intertwined with our ability to understand it. Simultaneously, our appreciation can be rooted in how we don't understand it. The way it's so different from us that inspires awe. It's a pretty big paradox, and if it feels difficult to grasp, don't worry, you're not alone. This isn't an issue that plagues Minecraft building, but the entirety of environmental aesthetic philosophy. Within the history of this niche field, I believe lies the key to better comprehending the role nature has in Minecraft, especially when we are its creator. Let's dive in. Part 1. A shallow pool of the picturesque. Right, so first things first, can we agree that Minecraft building is art? Can we get that out of the way so it doesn't feel like a strange jump when I start talking about art history? Yes, even if it's bad, it is a visual expression from your mind. It's art. Congratulations, you are an artist. And since we're talking about art, this video will be subjective. I want to clarify that any builds you see from other creators, I put in this video because I think they're great examples of nature done well, and my personal goals. Okay, great. Let's continue. For the longest time in Western art, landscapes were only a background, a frame for important figures, or a thematic complement to a subject. But when the Dutch Golden Age of painting came about, the entire European art sphere shifted. Landscapes in art moved closer to the eye, drawing more attention and merging into part of the main subject. This style dramatically picked up in popularity, and more artists took on landscapes as their specialty across Europe. One French artist in particular, Claude Lorraine, was widely praised, receiving commissions from the King of Spain and the Pope. Beautiful as a description alone just didn't cut it, and over time, these paintings and this aesthetic came to be known as picturesque. William Gilpin, who declared himself the founder of the aesthetic term, ascribed the definition of
that kind of beauty which is agreeable in a picture.
So true, King? He later went back and elaborated, calling it the ideal combination of the beautiful and the sublime, harmony, comfort, and roughness framed in composition. Honestly, I still don't know what he was trying to say, because how much beauty? How sublime? Isn't it also subjective? I don't know. Whatever he was spitting though, the term stayed in the vibe sold. The West had finally discovered looking at the Earth and going, wow! Picturesque tourism boomed in the 19th century, and an invention known as a Claude glass, named after Lorraine, grew in popularity. It was a small black mirror that one held up to the landscape to flatten and simplify it. Gilpin himself endorsed them, saying,
"They give the object of nature a soft, mellow tinge like the coloring of that Master Lorraine."
Meanwhile, those of wealth started shaping the land into this ideal. British aristocrats curated their gardens like paintings, with a distinct foreground, middle ground, and background. The environment was aesthetically trendy, but in a very specific way. Framed for us, by us, to be viewed in one perspective, with the highlight of nature being our choice. And surprise, this turned out to be problematic. In 1975, writer Ronald Reeds reflected on this era as he wrote,
"The Romantic movement was a mixed blessing. In certain phases of its development, it stimulated the movement for the protection of nature. But in its picturesque phase, it simply confirmed our anthropocentrism by suggesting that nature exists to please us as well as serve us. Our ethics, if the word can be used to describe our attitudes and behavior towards the environment, have lagged behind our aesthetics. It is an unfortunate lapse, which allows us to abuse our local environments and venerate the Alps and the Rockies."
But wait, if this video is about Minecraft, then how does this apply? Theoretically, the ethical concerns about the real environment shouldn't play a role in this digital world, but spoilers, I think they do. And in order to understand why, we have to explore the liminal space Minecraft occupies in this discussion. Philosopher Alan Carson uses the prior quote in his own paper, Appreciation of the Natural Environment, where he furthers the critique by saying,
"The model requires us to view the environment as if it were a static representation, which is essentially two-dimensional. It requires a reduction of the environment to a scene or view."
Minecraft is not the real world, but it does exist for us. In this way, it can't escape the human centricity of the picturesque. However, its dynamic presentation and third layer of dimension gives nature its perspective back. It's a subtle reminder that what it represents in real life does exist beyond our perception, and in turn, we look for that in the nature we create. As one commenter said,
I can build amazing, beautiful houses, but I can never make nature look convincing enough to fool myself into believing it was there before myself or the house.
often, our human ideas of beauty seep into our creations, and while it is no issue, it doesn't suspend our disbelief of the environment's existence. In curating a Minecraft landscape like a painting, we find ourselves in a similar position to the wealthy British aristocrats. We find ourselves in a garden. A running theme in art across humanity is the representation of our mind as a garden. And admittedly, I'm partial to this analogy. Like our brains, a garden is the world around us, organized and arranged separately from the chaos. It is our sense, and it is safe. A garden also has barriers, a beginning and an end like the edges of a canvas. In some ways, this analogy could put an end to our journey. If nature must travel through our garden on its way into Minecraft, can it ever escape its roots? Going back to the picturesque for a moment, I think Gilpin's vague description has always been the problem. That vagueness caters to us and us only. It suggests nature be weighed against the desires of our minds. The two-dimensional perspective isn't the issue, because art that values nature as equal or above us does exist. It's the two-dimensional thinking, suggesting that nature changes and not ourselves. Nature in Minecraft must be filtered through our perception. That cannot change. But in altering our understanding of nature, we can give our art the autonomy and reverence it deserves. And it starts by acknowledging what we do not let in our gardens, the things we deem intolerable. Part 2. The Depth of the Sublime. In 1757, Edmund Burke described the Sublime as
a delightful horror, a sort of tranquility tinged with terror.
The emotion itself is ironically vast and debated, but generally it's awe-inspiring and overwhelming. It commands respect and, most importantly, it's terrifying. When I think of the Sublime in Minecraft, I think of that moment when you're exploring the caves. Maybe your torches are running low, or maybe your food is. Either way, you're lost. You then see a familiar tunnel and follow it to the end. But it's not your salvation. Rather, a cavern so large it falls out of your render distance and into that endless blue fog. When I was building my landscape, I can tell you the exact moment I gave up. I wasn't satisfied with the mountains, so I trimmed them down and prepared to make them larger. But then, as I stared at the footprint, trying to imagine those giant peaks, I froze. Then I closed the game. Minecraft and the Sublime have such an interesting relationship because of the game's wide appeal. Earlier, I discussed how nature exists in Minecraft, and it might have sounded like a criticism, but it has to be that way to remain palatable. Real forests can be sprawling, overwhelming labyrinths, but this is cute. I know this isn't a tree. It knows it too. It's just telling me where to get wood. I think it's why games centered on resource collection feel better when stylized. Its lack of realism both visually and systematically removes us from the terror and guilt that comes from disrupting something as fragile as an ecosystem. If moving a population of bees for your honey farm always led to unpredictable ecological destruction, I think a lot less people would do it. On the other hand, I think this aspect of nature in the real world is what drives us to build it in Minecraft. Something so complex in this realm of ones and zeros reminds us of us. A custom tree, one that will never be cut down, that exists not for resources but just to exist, is akin to companionship. Well, unless it's bad. In that case, you have to claim it as your creation. Because otherwise, if it's a tree, and it looks like that, it's much, much worse. There's this video you might have seen. It's called Searching for a World That Doesn't Exist by YouTuber Wifeys. If by chance you are not a part of the 24 million people who have watched it, then let me quickly explain that it is a horror story framed as an ARG around and set in Minecraft. Minor spoilers for like the first 4 minutes, I guess, and then the builds. In part 1, in this particular scene, 2 things are established. 1, this is a single-player world. And 2, the cave the protagonist is exploring is not of his creation. These 2 facts make this moment terrifying. I don't know about you, but I hate this tree. Many others do too. It's a bad tree. Not a bad build, though, because it's doing exactly what it set out to do, making you feel like something is terribly, terribly wrong. This feeling or sensation is widely regarded as uncanny, and it comes about when something familiar is twisted into the unfamiliar. It's important to acknowledge that it's really based on pre-existing information and context. If this tree was on a multiplayer server next to some kid's house, you wouldn't be afraid, you'd just laugh. To give a strange, slightly funny, real-world example, I used to have a fear of billboards. In some ways, I still do. I grew up in one of the few states in the US where billboards are outlawed. I just never saw them. Then one day, my family took a road trip out of state, and there, sitting in the backseat of the car, I saw true horror. A man, plastered on a metal sheet, risen above the trees, trying to sell me something called insurance? Why is there an ugly man in the middle of the forest? I asked my mother. In his 2025 paper, Mark Windsor calls the uncanny the anti-sublime, relating their shifts between positive and negative emotions. If the sublime is a terror that can uplift, then the uncanny is the delight that drags us down. In this way, I see them as cyclical, the knowing that inspires awe and the known that reminds us we do not know. A push and a pull. The Horace build team, who created the builds for Wifey's series, utilize these concepts together to create landscapes that warn you away from themselves, yet pull you in with curiosity. I bring this up to shed light on the psychological difficulties surrounding building nature in Minecraft. A bad house might be laughably offensive, but a bad tree can feel like a threat. The fear of it might lead you to close your game and never try building a tree again. The foundation for the uncanny was built by a man you might know, Sigmund Freud. Most papers reference him, but he was not the first to explore the psychology of the uncanny. A man named Ernst Jentsch was, and he saw it as something to be soothed with understanding and knowledge. At the end of his 1906 paper, he states,
"The human desire for the intellectual mastery of one's environment is a strong one. Intellectual certainty provides psychical shelter in the struggle for existence. However it came to be, it signifies a defensive position against the assault of hostile forces, and the lack of such certainty is equivalent to a lack of cover in the episodes of that never-ending war of the human and organic world, for the sake of which the strongest and most impregnable bastions of science were erected."
Fear is a large blockade in our understanding of the world, especially nature and each other. For example, fire is considered dangerous, particularly in forests and environments, but this view is centered around ourselves and what makes us safe, not what's best for the ecosystem. As the US was brutally colonized, the eco-management strategies of indigenous peoples were denied and legally suppressed. This included their practice of low-intensity burnings, which were used to reduce the buildup of flammable biomass. You know, the kind that leads to the catastrophic fires we know today. In modern times, we have adopted these prescribed burnings into wider land management. Fire's important role in Western ecosystems has been acknowledged. But it was only after centuries of ignoring the people native to the land, letting the fear of fire and cultural difference stop us from learning, from growing, from loving. And I just want to take a moment to point out the cascading effects of this. In a 2019 article titled, "What Western States Can Learn from Native American Wildfire Management Strategies," Professor Cory Marie Norgaard writes,
"While many view climate change as the major driver of today's megafires, one 2016 study demonstrates how Euro-American colonization caused the largest shifts in fire behaviors in California over the past 400 years. In other words, the genocide of indigenous peoples directly relates to today's catastrophic burning."
To bring this back to Minecraft, it's all about the barriers, the things we don't let inside. The tree that grows into the wall, the weeds and the flagstones, the half-eaten vegetables left by a hungry rabbit. Death, decay, fire, destruction, infection. We are averse to these things as a threat to us, but our knowledge gives us understanding of their necessity. It's strangely at the other end of that cycle, where something terrifying becomes awe-inspiring, where it becomes the sublime. Funny enough, this is in line with the current view of environmental aesthetic philosophy. which suggests that exploring the environment through the lens of science is essential to appreciating it. There's still nuance, of course. I always encourage self-exploration. But aside from all that, in terms of Minecraft, it also puts us exactly where we started. So what now? Part 3. The Scope and the Cope. I have a confession, actually. Everything I've told you up until now is a non-linear account of this story. Your beginning to this narrative is my end. After I rage quit my mountains, I decided to scale the project back. I figured if I could have less to do myself, maybe it wouldn't be so overwhelming. So I went to another builder named Zhyrr, who makes these fantastic and, dare I say, sublime landscapes. I sent him a sketch of my idea and asked him to focus on the topography. Then I decided I would go in and build the forest. My initial research on this project wasn't environmental aesthetic philosophy, but ecology. I chose a specific environment, I started listening to lectures, and I began organizing the project. I even invited other creators to join me. But once I started, I realized my knowledge had only increased the scale, bringing me back to that stunned state. Do you know how much building history is in the square meter of a forest? Or a single tree? I do! It's a lot! Building a forest is like building a city, but not if I build every skyscraper and shopping mall, rather if I build every complex, individual person occupying it. For the first time in my career, understanding something hasn't made it easier to build. Everything I've discussed up until now, I researched in an effort to find an answer, a solution to soothe my unease, my uncertainty, the uncomfortable feeling I felt, the fear that... Oh, wait a minute. It is a vulnerable thing to admit when you're wrong, when you've underestimated and overreached. When I started this project, I assumed that nature would be easy for me. That was the familiar I would later find twisted, the uncanny of my own mind. I myself have been filtering nature through a lens, expecting it to be the change and I the constant. Even engaging with the question of this video, why is nature so difficult to build in Minecraft, is like turning to a near infinite living world and asking, why aren't you easy for me? We find comfort in certainty, but nature has a vastness we've been chasing our entire existence. It is the reference of our architecture, the crux of the humanities, and the substance of our science. Every day we prove nature more knowable while forgetting we too are a part of it. We are not definitive. We change and learn, and never in ways or at the rate we expect. That is scary and uncomfortable, but denying it can leave us worse off. Isolated in a garden, we think the whole world. At the same time, expanding our walls is not an overnight process. It's hard work, and fear, and love. I'm not giving up on my forest or capturing nature in Minecraft. There will actually be a part 2 to this video, but I'm accepting that it's hard, giving myself more patience and trying again. That is my solution to this unsolvable problem, because nature is hard to build, because it is. Nature is hard to build, because we are nature. That is the bottom of this iceberg, and it is also the philosophy of Minecraft. As the final lines of the end poem read, "The universe said you have played the game well. Everything you need is within you. You are stronger than you know. You are the daylight, you are the night. The darkness you fight is within you. The light you seek is within you. You are not alone. You are not separate from every other thing." And the universe said, "You are the universe, tasting itself, talking to itself, reading its own code." And the universe said, "I love you because you are love." And the game was over. And the player woke up from the dream. And the player began a new dream, and the player dreamed again, dreamed better, and the player was the universe, and the player was love. You are the player. Wake up. I lost my grandfather this past January. He held a doctorate in plant biology. He was a man of art, science, and humanities. Despite my family's history in academics, he never pressed expectations onto me. He never asked what my grades were, rather what I found interesting to draw. As a child, I found it frustrating. I wanted my A's to be recognized because I was told that that was valuable. But in him, I learned that knowledge was an eternal forest, cycling through renewal, and the only constant I needed in that environment was my adaptability, my curiosity. This isn't a typical Snifferish video, or maybe it is, but if you've watched it so far, I want to say thank you for indulging me. Thank you for letting me make art and engaging with the world this way. Thank you to my patrons who were originally promised a forest and instead got this. Your patience and understanding with who I am never goes unnoticed. And, happy Autism Awareness Month! Remember to take care of yourself, the people around you, the places you occupy, and the ones that you don't.